There's a long history to Gunpla that I wanted to educate myself on because, like many of you surmised from my last video, I'm pretty new to the scene. It's only been maybe, 2-3 years max since I started building Gunpla. Let's take this opportunity to rewind all the way back to the very, very beginning. So we're going to go all the way back to 1907, when Leo Bakefield made the first fully synthetic plastic. Hold up. We're not actually going to go back this far. We're going to just start at the beginning of Gundam in 1979. Mobile Suit Gundam released in 1979 on April the 7th. The show was not an instant hit and nearly got canceled. The reason why this is important is it actually created the opening for Bandai to come onto the scene. Clover, who was originally there to support the show and to create the toys for it, actually ended up being the reason why it was cut from its original airing of 52 episodes down to a total of 39. And a lot of this was due to the poor sales of the toys and the not so critical acclaim that the show is garnering. Part of the reason for that is that the age demographic was not exactly what they were aiming for. So these toys were, well, let's just take a look. As you can see here, it was plainly done as a horrible, horrible rendition of it's your classic 1970s toy. There was no customization to it. It was, pre-packaged, ready to go and play with. But the demographic that Gundam was falling in favor with was actually young adults and teenagers. The toys themselves were also based off of earlier prototypes and not actually the final Gundams that we see in the series. Bandai purchased the rights to make models for Gundam, but little did they know that with these new kits released in July of 1980, that they'd strike gold. The kits definitely appealed to the age demographic of young adults and teenagers that the show had garnered. This ended up resulting in it being an overwhelming success and a huge hit for the toy maker, selling over 100 million Gunpla units in the first 4 years. That's how big it was. These kits retailed for a total of 300 yen or $3 US. Almost all the mecha from the original series were featured in these original kits that they did put out. It wasn't just that, it was also the support aircraft and battleships that were included with it as well. Now, the parts came into up to 3 colors. With that in mind, all of these kits had to be glued as well. So you did have the additional purchase of the Tamiya cements and stuff like that. I don't know if it was around back then. I'm not an expert on everything, guys. Come on. This, however, didn't slow Bandai down at all. Through some acquisition efforts, they did manage to procure a multicolor injection molding system from Germany. This allowed for a single part on a runner to actually be injected with multiple coloring. So being able to cast plastic in that way really opened up for them to be able to support different kinds of kits. With this massive hit on their hands, Bandai did what any responsible company would do. They went and they sponsored Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam, releasing on March 2nd, 1985, just 6 years shy of when it was originally set up for Mobile Suit Gundam. This, along with the introduction of their new polycap system, really did allow for better joint articulation for the actual kits themselves. This ended up seeing Zeta Gundam become, again, another runaway success. This continued through all the way until the series ended in 1987. On the very last day, not long after, Bandai pulled another miracle of R&D out of their magical plastic building ether. This is where snap fit kits become popular, just so you know. These were featured first in the Gundam Sentinel model series of 1987, but by the time that 1988 rolled around, they were standard for every kit. Ah yes, 1990, my birth year. Also the year that the HG line first came out. How was that for a surprise? With the introduction of the high-grade kits allowing for better detail in the lower model series or the scale of 1/144, allowing some of those 1/100 scale models that they had previously done, some of the details from that being able to be integrated into that smaller series was kind of a bit of a big deal for a lot of people. Along with that, they also had the Gundam Core system. Now this part, I gotta read. The Gundam Core block system allowed for the core or cockpit to be removed from the Gundam to become a vehicle along with Zeta Gundam's transformation feature. Wow, interesting. After all of that, 1993 came along and further refinements did happen with the models, as well as a set of unified polycaps that made mass production of all of these kits a lot easier. 1995, though, was the advent of my favorite type of kit, the Master Grade series, with the 1/100 scale and so much in the way of details that it really hadn't ever been seen before. It also had a lot of improved articulation too, which is kind of a big deal for posing these things. However, then we have 1998. This saw the scale of 1/60 come to fruition. This was in the introduction of the first perfect grade kit, with yet more detail, light up gimmicks in the form of LEDs, and a skeletal system. This was where the exterior panels could be retrofitted to the individual skeleton of the actual Gundam, or the inner sections of the Gundam, just as you've all seen it. You all know what it looks like this. Of course, it was a fully articulated frame, so yet even more posability than the Master Grade series. The lineup still features today, and if anything, it's probably one of the most expensive lines that there is in all of Gunpla. 1999 wasn't too exciting of a year. It ended up being a bit of a throwback for Bandai. No, not that far back. They ended up releasing more 1/144 kits that were called first grade kits. These were from the original series, except for with their new snap fit technology, so no glue required. They were marketed as a budget series of Gunpla, the concept being the simplicity of the older kits with their new snap fit technologies, and it being based slightly off of the perfect grades in terms of some of the extra details or redesigns. Mobile Suit Gundam Seed, my least favorite series. Besides hosting one of the whiniest protagonists of all time, a new no-grade 1/144 style of kit. This brand spanking new design plan omitted some pretty important features in order to allow them to have a little bit less articulation, however, focusing more on the important parts of articulation, you know, your neck, your hips, and your shoulders. Don't forget the feet. The feet were there. They were articulated too. These budget models did retail lower than their HG counterparts, but covered pretty much every mech that was in the series. So that's, you know, kind of a trade-off. There were also some 1/100 scale models that were kind of similar to the HGs in terms of their quality and detail. Bandai, somewhere between 2000 and 2010, also coined the term Gunpla. So there's that. Thanks, Bandai. Thanks. Plastic crack. Yeah, I know. 2002. That's when the Verkaz were released. These had some pretty complex gimmicks, some of the designs, and of course some amazing decals as well. I don't have any Verkaz. If you want to send me one, like, just DM me. Email me. Yeah. 2010. Ah, yes. The swine flu, 2 earthquakes, and the Deep Horizon oil spill. And if you didn't realize, it was also Bandai's 30th anniversary. Yeah, that's right. Now, the 30th anniversary campaign did come complete with the 148 mega-size Gundam. Now, this was the RX-78-2, and there were plenty innovations as first, such as, you know, gates that were thin enough that they could be removed without nippers. And we can't forget the newest kid on the block, the RG or real grade line. They took their inspiration from their big brothers, the MG, and, you know, kind of shrank them down a little bit into that 1/144 scale size. During this year, Bandai also sued 2 manufacturers for ripping them off with bootlegs. So there's that. The total of the lawsuit actually ended up working out to be a total of $540,000 US. That's a lot of money. 2011, however, brought about a new kit, entry grades. There was also something called the advanced grade, but we'll get into that in a minute. Both types of kits didn't really last that long and ended up being discontinued. The entry grade kits were made in China and were only really featured throughout Asia, so North Americans didn't really get anything, so Bandai wasn't showing so much love at that point. As for the advanced grades, they were interesting. Okay, let's just say that they were interesting. They had microchips in them so that you could play them in an arcade game called Gaching, I think it was. It was like GAGE-ING, I think. I don't know. I would have to reread it. Now, the advanced grades, they were a budget line, so they didn't have the most amazing detail or anything like that. They were mostly focused on the actual like color reproductions, and they didn't have a whole lot in the way of articulation, and it was all about like the arrangement and just giving you the illusion so that you could play this horrible arcade game. I understand that we're supposed to look right at the camera when we're talking to you guys, but I can't say this line without like reading it. Even then, it's kind of shaky, so you're stuck with this. Sorry. 2014 introduced a beloved kit, the MG RX-78-2 Gundam version 3. This had the engineering both of the MG 2.0 and a little bit of the RG kits thrown in there too, somewhere into the mix. 2015, we had the HG Revive kits. Really, they were just classic mobile suit designs with a little bit of, upgraded engineering. Yeah, nothing too fancy, nothing too special. Sorry to disappoint. 2016. Oh my god, 2016. This is the greatest year ever because Bandai finally recognizes that there's people overseas and starts using English on their packaging and in the manuals. Isn't that great? All of them from then on. Fantastic. Now, I just want to point out that for 2017, this is kind of topical for 2023 and kind of hilarious as well. 2017, Bandai started what they call the Gundam Evolution Project. I just want that to sink in for a minute. Gundam Evolution. This. Yeah. No, they were talking about kits. They were talking about specific kinds of kits. It was aimed really at improving Gunpla through various means. So they wanted to do some groundbreaking kits with new joint systems and LED systems, and really to just prep for the 40th anniversary of Bandai and Gundam. Yeah, that was coming up in 2020, so they were, a little early, 3 years early on that one. Now, what they did cook up in 2020 was actually pretty cool, and that's the MGX, okay? So the MG Extreme. Now, this was like the luxury Cadillac of Gunpla when it came out in 2020. Like, everybody wanted it. It was just redesigns of master grades with gimmicks called extreme points. They really just kind of like showed off and amplified the gimmicks that were already there. They just made them better. During 2020, though, we were also greeted with a special friend. Do you guys remember the entry grade models? Yeah, they came back. They came back with a vengeance because they're worldwide. Yeah, they became worldwide at that point. 2020, let's go. I know that there's been more stuff like the Witch from Mercury series or Iron-Blooded Orphan back in, 2016 that came out. But I don't think that those are like necessarily innovations when it comes to Gunpla. Definitely the Witch from Mercury kits do have some interesting gimmicks and has been a bit of a change for the way that Bandai sets up their HGs in particular. And we have seen kind of a decline in master grades being released, and the full mechanics Gundam Aerial was pretty freaking awesome. I have one, but we've seen kind of a lack of that stuff coming out. Knowing that I haven't probably covered everything, I'm sure you guys in the comments are going to let me know. I would appreciate it, because it's just going to help me make a better video next time with more Gundam history if I ever decide to update it. Oh, and I also forgot to mention the SD kits. Because, when the show came out, I think it was in the 2000s, I hated it. I hated it too. SD Gundams. You don't belong here. Go home. That's it for me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. The video is over. It's time for you guys to go home.